Well, what I know of my birth date is May 6th, 1967. From what I found out is I was in an orphanage in Seoul. And so I did go read my papers, but I didn't really know much. And then I was told I was adopted at 4.5 years old. And then to the United States. And I was small for my age, of course. And so I don't really remember that time frame. But then within that family, I was being physically abused. And everybody knew about it, but this is 1971. So I was just with that family. They had successful domestic adoptions with 3 other children, and I think they had a biological sibling. And so what happened is I was being abused physically. I was isolated in my room every single day, no toys, nothing, just a bed. The mother would lock the kitchen door from the kitchen side and then put a washcloth in the hallway door. And I would just sit on my bed because there was no toys. And I would just sit there daily. And until I saw that washcloth move, I knew that I was in that room for the duration. And that's pretty much what my daily routine was. I don't remember anything else, doing anything. If I had to go to the restroom, I had to tell her. So then she would make me walk in front of her down the hallway, and she'd kick me in the back all the way to the restroom. And that is all I remember every single day. And so one day I was in my room and locked the kitchen door from the kitchen side, and all of a sudden there was no washcloth on the hallway door. So I decided I'm going to run away, and I got my tennis shoes out. My feet were swollen, so I had to squeeze my feet in. And I snuck out and ran away. But what I found out was I was only in my next door neighbor's garage, hidden in the corner, because I thought I'd gone a million miles. So that didn't make my situation any better. So I got back. I had no idea what else was going on in my life because I don't remember interacting with my siblings. I don't remember interacting with the father. It was just me in my room. That was it daily. And to go to school, I didn't even know I was going to school. So I have no memory of that. The physical abuse, it's amazing that part I can remember distinctly because I would be whipped with whatever instrument that she had. I'd be kicked, and she'd grab me by my ankles and whip me up against the wall. And I do remember the neighbors coming over a lot, and she would hug me. But then once they left, I was back in my room. So that was pretty much my daily routine. And then I was told that the parents were told to surrender me because they weren't going to finalize the adoption because they heard of the alleged abuse. So I had no recollection. And one day I went to school because I guess I was in kindergarten, and I was brought to the principal's room, and my social worker was there, the principal was there, some other person was there. My social worker showed me a picture of this family and said, "Would you like to go live with this family?" And I knew that was my out. So I said yes immediately. And that day I was brought to that family. And I remember that day distinctly. And so, new smells, new family. They had a biological daughter, 2 years older than me. And then my mother told me that I didn't talk for like 3 months. I barely ate, very quiet. But I think I outgrew it, and I started trusting them. They gave me a lot of love, and I thought I had a great childhood. Growing up with my second family, I had a great childhood. I got along great with my sister. She was 2 years older than me. We were very close. We shared a room together, and so we were just sisters. We were best friends. And both parents worked, so we pretty much growing up babysat each other. And I learned to cook and clean along with my sister and going to school. I love school. I think school was my escape. Even though, yes, I did get picked on, but you know what? It didn't really bother me. I got along great. Socially, I loved it, so I was very outgoing, even though I consider myself a very shy person. But I made a lot of friends. I played a lot. Junior high, I would think, well, we did move from Minnesota to Nebraska. And so that was a little change. And then what happened from that after a year moving to Nebraska, my parents did divorce. So I think I was around 12 or 13. And that was a big change for me, but the family atmosphere was really not livable with them arguing. So I was pretty okay with them getting a divorce. My sister wasn't, on the other hand. So pretty much all the attention went back to her because we needed to take care of her. She wasn't handling it well. But I had my school and my friends as an escape. So I pretty much spent a lot of my time with my friends and relied on them because my mom really wasn't there for me. And which was okay. I think I was resilient enough to be okay with what was going on, to focus on my sister. And so I turned out pretty okay, because I knew what I wanted. I wanted to be happy, and I was in school and with my friends. That was my life. And then high school, I met my now current husband when I was 14. So once again, my life was spending time with him, spending time with my girlfriends. I don't consider myself popular, but I was very outgoing with my friends, had a large group of friends, and really truly enjoyed going to school, being on the dance squad, very outgoing, and just I knew what my life was going to be because my sister was still having issues as I was growing up. Then she moved away, so it was pretty much myself raising myself in high school. My mom was out doing whatever she was doing, so I just pretty much stayed myself, hung out with my friends all the time, my boyfriend. But you know what? I thought life was grand. I just was, that's what I was supposed to do, and I was going to go through school and graduate, and, my next path in life was go to college. But really, when I look back on it, I didn't want to go to college, but my mom said, yes, go to college. So I did, but I stayed with the same boyfriend, graduated from college, and we ended up, well, back up, I'll be a freshman in college, and just before finals, my father passed away, so I was still 18. So that was a big loss for me, besides the fact that I rarely got to see him after the divorce. But I was really close to him, and he was more, of course, the fun parent because my mom was the disciplinarian. But so that was a big loss for me, even though we weren't that connected after the divorce, but it's still that parent figure. So once again, I just felt at a loss because my mom really wasn't there for me either. So, but I did survive and I continued my education, and it was a struggle with, trying to be normal. I think we all try to be normal, find out who we are. And my sister ended up moving to California, and she said that I could come out there for spring break. And she unloaded that she had a baby and she gave her up for adoption. And she wanted to tell me that because, of course, I'm adopted. And that was a big weight on my shoulders. But she thought she could share that story with me because of the fact that I'm adopted. So I went home and I didn't tell my mom because it's not my story to tell. And my mom got really upset at me. But I stood my ground, and I think that's what I've always done in my life is stand my ground. And I said that wasn't my story to tell. But that really impacted me a lot because I thought, wow, my sister did actually the same thing that, I went through that journey. So, I once again I had to focus on myself because my mom had moved to Phoenix, and I thought, well, I'm still by myself and I can do it. I worked. I, you know, went through my classes and we graduated, had gotten engaged, and then did find a career job, and then built a house and we got married. It was just, it was the perfect American dream for me. That's exactly the path that I wanted to go. And here it was coming true. Well, after we got married, we got pregnant right away. So, that's pretty amazing for me because I finally had someone that looked like me. And it was pretty amazing because my daughter looks exactly like me. So that was a happy occasion. We were young, but that's what I wanted to do. And then 3 years later, we had my son. And once again, wow, amazing to have a blood relation. So here I had my own children. Amazing. And, I felt so blessed and I felt complete. And I thought life couldn't get any better. So by the time my youngest was 4, we said, well, we're done having kids. This is awesome. We've reached, the pinnacle. And then the story of the Walt Disney baby, of the mother leaving the baby in the bathroom, completely touched me. And we were back in Omaha, and I said, I don't know, for some reason that story touched me, so I said, I need to have that baby. And I called every media station. I called my friends that I knew that were in the news industry, and I said, I need to have that baby. And so I talked to a social worker in Omaha, and she was not the person to talk to because she's like, there's all these domestic babies that need homes too. And I said, I understand it, but here's my background and the reason why I feel so connected to this baby. And so then I talked to somebody else, and she was the right person to talk to. And so she was really sympathetic to my story. And she said, well, have you ever heard about Holt? Well, there was the light bulb. I said, funny you should say that because that's who I was adopted through. And so I got off the phone, and that was it. I said, honey, we are going to adopt. It's time. And let's talk about it, because we said we were done having kids. But when that light bulb went off, I said, that's what I've been wanting to do, is adopt from Korea and give back and let somebody else have a chance at a life like I did. And so we started the process, and which really makes you look at yourself and learn about yourself. And my husband and I did the questionnaire separately to see if we really were compatible and thought the same about raising kids. And so it was really a good learning experience for both of us because, we had known each other since we were 14. So let's see how well we really do know each other. So we completed that and had the home study done. And I had specified that I wanted a baby girl from Korea because that was my lifelong thinking, that I'd want to adopt a baby girl because of myself. And because at that time in 98, we couldn't specify the gender because we had a boy and a girl already in our family. So, but the social worker was sympathetic, and she said she'll just write that in. So then it's the waiting game, and you have no control of when you're going to get a call. And we were going to go to Minnesota for a weekend or a week, I can't remember. And I get a call, my husband's at work, and I answer the phone, and it's the social worker, and I thought she's just checking up on us, how we're doing. And I'm like, we're good. We're going to be going to Minnesota here in the afternoon. And she's like, oh, because I have some news. And I said, about what? And she said, we have a referral. And I just didn't know what to think. I mean, it's like finding out you're pregnant. And I said, and it is? And she said, it's a girl. And I mean, it's just that, it was just completely amazing. It's like I found out I was pregnant with my other two. And so I tried to get a hold of my husband, and he didn't answer. And this is the day and age of no cell phones. So you had to do, phone calls. And I had to tell somebody. I was just bursting. And so I called my mom in Phoenix, and I told her, and she was really excited and happy. And then I finally got a hold of my husband, and I said, are you sitting down? And he's like, yeah. And I said, well, on our way to Minnesota, we need to stop in Iowa because we have a referral of a baby girl. And so that was the start of our journey. So we went, he came home, packed up the car, packed up the kids, headed to Council Bluffs to the branch office, and picked up our file of the referral of the little girl, and there's this little picture. And so we get in the car, we start driving Minnesota, and I start reading the file, and I just start crying because it was just amazing, because it was like me reading my own file. And I just felt so blessed that here I was, Korean adoptee, going through this journey. And I just felt so grateful for my birth mother and now my daughter's birth mother to, do this sacrifice. So, I mean, and that was completely surprising that it would hit me and affect me like that. But I was so happy and couldn't believe that my dream was coming true. But it's just such a surreal feeling and full circle moments. And that's what I call all my life events, are full circle life events, because I've gone through so many. And I'm appreciative of all of them. And it was just incredible to be able to read this file on this baby that's going to be my daughter from Korea and have the same journey that I did. So, I mean, it's just that bond. And I think it was a total awakening for myself, too, for my self-awareness, and total more appreciation for where I've come from. on my front page of my file was written my last name, and then there was a first name written on there in pencil. And I said, that is the name of my father, of my first adoptive parents. And so I Googled it. And sure enough, there's a name popped up, and it said they could be related to this person and this person and this person. So I Googled them, same matches. And I never knew the first names of my first adoptive parents until then. And so I had one number that popped up on my computer screen, and I called it, and I thought, well, maybe they have a connection to my first adoptive parents. So I dialed it, and I must have recognized the voice because it was the mother. So it was my first adoptive mother, and I said, this is going to sound crazy, but did you adopt a little girl from Korea in 1971? And she said, yes. And I said, did you have to surrender her in 1972? And she said, yes. And I said, I think I'm that little girl. And there was just a pause. She really didn't say anything. And I said, all I wanted to do, and I've always wanted to do, is to tell you and your husband thank you, because you are the ones that brought me to the United States. And I wanted you to know that I'm living a very wonderful and happy life. So I have always forgiven them. And I said, I have a family of my own. We're living a wonderful life. I'm able to give back to the agency. And she said, yes, we did do that, didn't we? And I said, yes, you did. And I said, and if your husband is still around, can you please let him know that I'm okay? And my siblings, if they ever ask about me, you can give them my contact information. And it's so funny because then she tells me that she has a sister that lives in Blair, which is just a few miles from where I live currently in Omaha. And then she says, I still have some pictures of you. I should send them to you. And I said, that would be great, because I only have 2 pictures from that time frame. But you know what? There's no expectations on my part. I knew she wouldn't. And she never did apologize, but I didn't need an apology. But I was able to thank her and, just to give her peace. And so that's how I've lived my life, is forgiveness, because I knew if I carried that anger with me, that I wouldn't be happy in my life. So I've never carried that with me. And so with my current mother, with my dad passing away, our relationship was really, since she wasn't there for me after the divorce, it was just really superficial. And she was really focused on herself. And I just thought, I've done it this long, I can continue on without needing her support. And so there was one point in time when there was a counselor that said, you've had this ideal image of a mother in your mind from your birth mother. And if you've had a foster mother, or if she didn't know my story, but she said, and your first adoptive mother, and now you're current. And she said, you're never going to find her, so you need to stop looking. And that was another light bulb moment for me. So ever since then, I've been pretty okay with just being on my own, and of course with my own family and my spouse. And so, I've really pretty much been able to just forgive. And I've helped out my mom currently with her situation. And it's just about, because I'm so thankful. And I've tried to explain to other people about being grateful and thankful, because it's not about being grateful to my mother, because I don't think she was a mother to me, but I'm thankful that she was my mother, because it's the person that I am today. Because of, the family situation, my childhood I thought was a great childhood, even though it was from 5.5 years old to maybe 10. But those were great childhood years, and I have great memories. And those are the years that, I said, I want my kids to have those same kind of memories. So, it was very impactful for me. So that's what I took out of it. And that's why I'm thankful, more than grateful, because I'm grateful that I'm healthy and I'm living and my kids are healthy. So that's the gratefulness that I have. So, and my mom knows that. She knows my feelings towards her. And she knows that, I love her and that I'm thankful, and that's why I'm helping her. Choosing to be a stay-at-home mom with 3 of my kids, it was a struggle for my husband and I, to live on one income, but we made it work, and we've worked really hard to where we are today. And so we've been very blessed. And now with that, I don't know what it was with my upbringing, but, I always had to work for whatever it is that I wanted. And so having the reward system and the deserving of everything good in my life, I had a really hard time accepting that. I don't know what it's from, if it was from being abandoned, being in the orphanage and nothing was my own, being in the first adoptive family and being taken away from there. Then my second adoptive family, the divorce, my father passing away. I mean, I just felt like everything that I would attach to was taken away. So I thought anything good, I shouldn't have, and I didn't deserve it. So it took me quite a while in my adulthood, and I think part of it was growing up and being able to go to Korea, learning more about myself and the history. And I said, you know what? After I look at my life, I think I did pretty well. So I think I am deserving. So once I said I'm deserving of all the good that's happened in my life, I mean, I became even more, I just blossomed and I became more and more open. So now with that, I can help other orphans in Korea. So it's been my mission to help orphans and unwed mothers in Korea. And because I don't know, I just have this empathy in me that, I was so lucky to be where I am. Even though I didn't start off, great, and I was abused, and I come from a broken family, and I've lost a father, but, that's all superficial stuff to me. And so I think for me to say, okay, I deserve all the good, I'm able to share in my blessings. And then that balances out that, okay, then I can be good to myself, which really helps a lot. So, I've traveled to Korea 13 times now since 2005. So I can go back and continue to show my support for the agency that was really, supported me, and I'm here today. And so I feel like, when God put me on this earth, he's pretty much given me every test possible. And including brain surgery at the age of 33 that I survived and a seizure 2 years later. I'm like, God, you don't need to give me any more tests. I know what I'm supposed to do. And it was amazing to hear Dr. David Kim speak, because he quoted and always said, when you have money, you can't take it with you when you pass. And that has stuck with me ever since 2005. And it's not like I spend, foolishly, but I share in my blessings as much as I can. I try to volunteer to whoever's in need. And I just feel so thankful that I can do that. And when other people try to put me down for saying that, you know what, but you got ripped away from your birth country. And I say, but, I've been to Korea enough times to know what that society is like and what my life would have been like. And I'm grateful, truly, to be alive today, because I have such a wonderful life. And you don't have to have a lot of money to be thankful and grateful, because you can volunteer of your time. That's what I did prior to all this. I volunteered a lot. And I just think, what goes around comes around. And I just appreciate it. And, I make my mistakes too, but you know what? I'm just living my life, and I like to go and share my story. And if you can touch one person to think differently about your life, then that's what I do. And so I volunteer quite a lot to raise funds for Holt. And I think that is my mission from here on out. And of course, I tell other people, you know what? You don't have to be like me, because I always say, focus on your family, raise your family. They're the most important thing, because that's what I did. It took me till I was in my late 30s to be able to go and travel like I do, because my kids came first, and my family will always come first. And that's what you do. You spoil your family first, and then you take the remainder of your blessings and you share.